be talking about like shovelware that I played a lot as a kid. So in M&M's kart racing, one plays as an anthropomorphized chocolate candy driving a go-kart. The graphics aren't good and the color palette is oppressive for a game attempting to highlight the colorful personalities of chocolate buttons. At an arbitrary speed, the game triggers this voice line, approaching the sound barrier. In standard gameplay, this occurs a few times a minute, every time you gain any amount of speed after crashing into an obstacle, which is inevitable. The muffled echo is noticeable enough to make an educated guess on the size of the voice actor's department. It repeats enough for the words to lose their meaning over time, though they didn't make much sense to begin with. The hum of M&M piloted buggies and the self-interrupting sound clips layer on top of each other in chaos. M&M's kart racing's controls are bad, and having to use the Wii remote as a steering wheel only widens the gap between desired input and action. It is a terrible game with no soul. Negligence has unwittingly flavored M&M's kart racing with this peculiar melancholy that I saw repeated in many different shovelware games. I'd stay up past my bedtime in these underpopulated environments, careening the little cart through stages, having low to moderate amounts of fun. Yes. Okay. M&M's kart racing was one of several shovelware games I played a lot on my Nintendo Wii. As a kid, the most I had interacted with Mario games was through an N64 station at a McDonald's in the Bay Area, and a Game Boy Advance SP station at a Chase Bank waiting area where my mom would bring me along. These games gave me a window into how challenging and rewarding games could be, but due to circumstance, I could obviously only play sporadically and for a few minutes. My parents would pick out the more affordable used games from GameStop, so I ended up playing a lot of movie license games. I had a collection of horse games spanning from a couple consoles too, one of which was Horses 2. This game was good. Horses 1 and 2, actually. I grew up as an only child in a suburb with a population of around 10,000. Most lived along the man-made deltas and waterfront communities, but my parents and I lived flush against a cornfield west of the deltas. The view from our house was of an expansive cornfield. I remember spending, I remember watching the helicopters fly low, the crops overseen by Mount Diablo in the distance. I spent many 100-degree days playing in the street, the hot asphalt creating rippling waves in the distance. I was an aspiring horse girl, with parents that already lived well above their means, which only became evident to me later in life when our house got foreclosed. Horse games were my parents' attempt to pacify my unattainable desire for an equestrian lifestyle. I remember riding my horse and Horses 2 through dirt paths that cut through pale green pastures, projecting myself onto the white girl who rode the horse. I would return to the quiet stable to watch the horse in a mini-game, with tenderness the game wouldn't allow me. When interacting with your horse in Horses, you remain a disembodied tool, whether that be a hoof pick, hand, or pose. Games in general rarely allowed me to do what I wanted from them, or even what they wanted me to do. The pipe dream of loving and taking care of a horse was conveyed in Horses through impersonal mechanics, turning grooming into a timed event and arbitrarily gaining trust when completing tasks. Not to mention there was an unwelcome romantic plot I just really didn't need from a horse game. I remember going to my friend Veronica's house after school and taking turns on her mom's laptop to play on girlsgogames.com. I'm not sure if any of you know that site. She was as much into playing video games as I was and the boys I knew, but our knowledge of games was very similarly narrow. Whether it be due to advertisement, parental assumptions of taste, or just financial accessibilities, the video games we played together were really low quality. Playing games on girlsgogames.com and other doll dress-up sites was just an unfortunate result of trying to find good video games. Despite later discovering more fun-free games online on sites like Addicting Games and Newgrounds, we spent many summer vacation days playing makeover, dating, and workplace games. These games almost always lacked challenges and didn't require any form of fine motor skills beyond clicking, dragging, and swiping. The game had very clear goals, however, which were mandated by their limited mechanics. The extreme rigidity in these games, which ironically centered around creativity and centered around an aspirational doll to project oneself onto, When it questioned by me as a child. I didn't like the over-the-top cartoonish styles of adult fashion of these games, nor was I interested in makeup at that age, but I lacked a point of reference. Sorry, I missed this. This is me and my mom. That's a little late. Yeah, me and my friend would have the most fun clicking the finish button without applying any clothes or makeup to our avatar. This would send you to a completed pose scene, for example, the avatar as a bride at her wedding or leaning casually against a locker in front of her crush, smiling confidently with only her undergarments on. This was the most you could break away from what the game wanted from you and provided the most fun. Here's some games on Girl Scout games. They're very good. Of the hundreds of games hosted on Girl Scout Games, the overwhelming majority are makeover games that focus on the transformation from ugly to pretty. The mechanics of makeover games have, for the most part, remained consistent over the last 10 years. Typically, there is a hand or arrow cursor that moves side to side, directing you to whatever tool it needs you to use. Once selected, the cursor turns into said object, and the mechanics of the game is usually to move the tool back and forth over the part of the body or face. Throughout all these games, the only visual progress that is seen is on the body of a cartoon woman. There's a tight leash on what is allowed, and no experimentation is allowed for these games, which only mechanic is to customize. In makeover games, the player is usually forced to choose a lipstick or mascara before being allowed to proceed to the next cosmetic item. So, I was not supposed to play any of these games for more than a few hours, I realized retrospectively. In middle school, I had a group of friends that were guys that played Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh! Who I would specifically, I would talk to them about games. It was when they talked about World of Warcraft specifically that I realized how much I had missed throughout my childhood. I had spent years playing video games that were not played by others and were the butt of every joke about shitty gifts from parents. It sunk in how isolated my gaming experiences had been, and I kept the classics of my childhood to myself. I had sunk hundreds of hours into games that my peers didn't even consider to be games. Oh, this is early, sorry. Video game environments shaped me in the same way the places of my childhood did. Agricultural suburbia is bleak and barren, as are the hastily made environments of shovelware games. The repetition of reskinned licensed games mirrors the same laziness as the wide, flat, prefabricated houses dotting the winding cul-de-sacs. There is a similar comforting melancholy throughout both that is nostalgic to me. So in my art, I try to seek this same feeling with intention. Instead of through accidental minimalism, I try to express the mundanity and banality I became close with and made friends with as a kid through intentional maximalism. The landscapes of shovelware in my neighborhood blur in my mind. With my collages, I take screenshots from Google Maps Street View of ordinary objects and activities and mosh podge them all together in one confined space. What did I write? It's not until recently I decided to, I forced myself to view my unorthodox gaming experience as interesting and valuable. I don't meet many people who play the shovelware I have, and when I do, it's all the more comforting to know that the empty space I played in was also populated by them at some point in time. I think it's also, deviating from the standard canons is pretty cool. I think give you some interesting insight. My name is Marley. Thank you.